I am really committed to helping our community establish businesses and grow together.
This is the Transparency Podcast Show with hosts Shelby Chang and Michelle Herman from Long Beach, California, where we bring you life transformation stories, business, investment, personal development, entertainment, and more.
I'm here today to introduce you a guest. Her name is Herman. She's a businesswoman. She's located in Long Beach, California. I recently get to meet her in person, and we head off right away. We have similar mindset, and we have similar transitioning journey. So today, she's going to be here to share her transitioning stories with you and her business trick and tips with you. Welcome to the show, Michelle.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Yeah, so let's start off to share with the audience, like, when, and how did you realize that you're not living as your true self?
Right.
Yeah.
I have memories back to age 4, and there's actually pictures of me wearing my grandmother's makeup around. And so there's memories throughout childhood, and that was one of the ones that kind of helped me realize something was there. I struggled all through elementary school and junior high specifically. And I grew up in a Christian fundamentalist home. And so there wasn't even an environment to talk about stuff like this. I knew those people were bad or wrong. And so I just buried it. I just pushed it deep, lost myself in school and in sports, and then college, and then ultimately work. I went into full-time ministry right out of college. I met my wife previously on a missions trip to New York City.
Okay.
And I just hid. I joined the ministry, stayed busy, and just hid.
So did your wife discover your true self?
Yes,
in
I
a
talked to
way?
her whatever words I knew at the time. We talked before we were married, and I told her there was something there. And of course, I thought being married would cure me. And so
Yes, that's
it
applied
actually
to a lot
did
of
not.
people.
And so she knew we talked about it on and off. For a while, once I stayed busy, especially early in our marriage, I was able to kind of keep it at bay a little bit, but there was always this underlying anger and frustration and resentment that I at that time did not know where it came from.
So what about when you grow up, like when you're in the schools, did you like bully, like if you look, do you look like more
Yeah,
femme
no,
in a
I don't think
way?
anyone would have.
Or do you try to be in a sports, try to
Yes,
hide
yeah.
yourself like
I
that?
remember my freshman year of high school making the decision to play freshman football, trying to be like a boy, trying to be a
Yeah,
man.
okay.
And I knew that's what it was also something the popular people do. And so
Yes,
it
yes.
wasn't anything that I did because of myself. It was because of trying to distract myself or hide, actually both. And so I got really good at that. I got good at playing the game. I got really good at religion and staying busy. Um, I realized different stages as I went through that, trying not to be too competitive.
Yeah.
And so all these layers began to peel off. And I was directing our team here in Los Angeles of about almost 30 people.
Okay.
And I started to basically go through what felt like a nervous breakdown. I was really busy
Okay.
raising support for our nonprofit. And it got to the point where I couldn't do much anymore. And so we went through a process of delegating all my tasks. And I took a sabbatical to raise my own support as well. And I went through about 3 to 4 months of not being able to get out of bed and
Wow.
realizing for the first time what depression really was, even though I probably always had it.
Right.
I really understood what it was. And went to a counselor that was defined to me as a life coach, which I felt good about that. But the first time that we saw each other, he called me a fraud and a
Oh my
fake,
God.
and
So
that
sad.
my wife is scared to death. And basically, he was right. I was just a facade. I was just doing everything on the outside.
Yes.
Inner life was pretty much hollow cardboard, and I didn't have much depth of the relationships. And so that began the process through counseling of still in counseling over 15 years,
Okay.
but began to really look at myself and address myself. And probably about a year or so into therapy, I actually got the courage and maybe the conviction to tell my counselor, there's something here about my gender.
Yeah.
that I'm struggling with,
Okay.
and I was very scared to even present it. He actually kind of looked like Wolfman Jack from the old school news days radio, and he was very gruff. He would get on his little ottoman and stand and yell at me, kind of mimicking my
Mm-hmm.
dad to kind of
Right.
help me work through some of those things. And so, it wasn't a touchy feely counselor, but it worked, and it really helped me dig deeper and find out what was going on.
So recently we heard about a governor or some sort of government um, s- personnel criticize that we're not
Yeah,
permanent.
right.
What do you think about that?
Yes, it's a shame that so much litigation is going through the states right
Mm-hmm.
now, especially states like Texas and Alabama and Idaho, um, where there's just such ignorance to what is really happening. And I can understand that perspective because for a
Mm-hmm.
lot of my life, that's what the perspective I took because
Yes.
I was fighting myself.
Yeah.
And so I can understand that, and coming from a evangelical background, I can understand that, but it's based so much in ignorance. And if they knew the reality, and if they
Mm-hmm.
knew what trans people really go through, if they knew that we are our own hardest enemy or our worst critic,
Mm-hmm.
and there's no one that's going to be more of a critic than I am to myself.
Yes.
But understanding that we have a lot of work to do. And as a
Yes.
community, we have
That's
a lot
right.
of coming together
Mm-hmm.
and to support and build into each other. Because if we don't do it, who will?
Yeah, that's very true. So let's kind of switch back to your personal story,
Yes.
your life.
Yeah,
So did you have kids or
I
children with
do. I
your?
have two children.
So how do they react to your
Yeah.
transitioning?
It kind of came down where, um, in probably the, probably from 2016 to
Mm-hmm.
2019 was probably some of the most difficult times. I was really dealing with suicidal ideation.
Mm.
And I remember a September evening, a Saturday night, I was in bed with my wife, and I
Okay.
just said, I have to transition. I can't keep doing this. For the last
Mm-hmm.
probably 8 years prior to that, I was going to therapy to not transition. And
Yes.
because I would lose my wife, I would lose my family, I'd lose my
Mm-hmm.
ministry, my nonprofit career.
Right.
And she understood. She knew that she didn't want it, and she knew that she wouldn't be with me if I did.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that. But I couldn't just fake it anymore. I couldn't hold it in. I actually planned out my suicide. And
Oh
so it
my
scared me
gosh.
enough because I know my son has some tendencies with mental
Mm-hmm.
health like I do.
Yes.
And so I didn't want to kind of create any pathway for him either. So I stayed at home with my family from September 2019 through
Mm-hmm.
the end of the year. And
Okay.
then I moved to Long Beach,
Mm-hmm.
January of 2020, our
Okay.
fun year. And I actually started my HRT pills on the way to my apartment because I promised my wife I would do it after I left.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was January 5th, 1999 is when I started transition.
Yeah, so when you start taking the HRT, do you feel that you are aligned? Because when I start taking it, I actually feel very happy, like relieved
Oh my
in a
gosh,
way.
yes,
And
yes.
and well, some people say there's a side effect with
Hmm.
emotional attack or some sort,
Right.
but I'm actually didn't feel that.
Yeah.
I feel like, oh, this is me, and I feel okay, and I'm more confident. Do you feel
Yes,
some sort of that
totally.
way too?
I remember hearing stories about how people felt kind of a peace and a
Mm-hmm.
wholeness, and
Yes.
so I really longed for that. I wanted for that because I was that time I was realizing I didn't have that, and so I knew that if I didn't have that, I probably wasn't trans enough. And even though
Yeah.
I don't think that, I wouldn't counsel anyone
Mhm.
like that anymore. But um, within 3 days, I felt totally different. I had a peace, a calmness.
Yes.
I found myself whistling,
Mhm.
just to myself. I'm like, what is this? And
Singing.
and singing, yes, and just this new level of happiness that I never knew was possible.
Mhm.
And so for me, that was affirmation within a couple days of, man, this my body really wanted this. This is how I best operate. This
Mhm.
aligns things that needed to be aligned. And
Right.
so, yeah, it's been amazing. It's been an amazing journey. I love the
Okay.
HRT
Yeah,
process.
awesome. So, right now we're gonna switch to so with your transitioning
Mhm.
story, and then now you're owning your business,
Yeah.
and it's called trans owned. It's
Yes,
like a directory for
correct,
trans people's business.
correct.
Um, like, where's this idea come from? How do
Yeah,
you inspire to start
right.
this business?
I was a social worker by trade. That's kind of
Mm-hmm.
what I did in ministry, and then had a job at a health clinic downtown Los Angeles. And that's the job I took, leaving ministry, stepping out of ministry, knowing
Mm-hmm.
that at some point probably transition was in the process, and I would not be able to do that in ministry. Um, so I had the background of working with people, helping people, and part of that included some entrepreneur training that I've done in
Mm-hmm.
the past within our city, and it was amazing. We saw some great results, and it was very
Mm-hmm.
rewarding to do. And so I always knew I wanted to do my own. I was always entrepreneurial in that
Mm-hmm.
way.
Yes.
That came out a lot in our ministry and different programs we did.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the story is kind of silly, but I was looking for a trans T-shirt. And once
Oh,
I was
okay.
out and I was trying to go through the process of
Mm-hmm.
reestablishing a wardrobe, and I found a few trans shirts at that time, but I always wanted, who owns these shops? I really would like to buy something from a trans-owned place
Correct.
and to support our community and build it.
Yes.
I
Mm-hmm.
could, this may be some cis person, and that's fine. They can sell stuff, of course, but I really wanted to think that. So there has to be something out there that
Mm-hmm.
lists different trans businesses, and I couldn't find anything.
Oh,
And
wow.
I found, kind of the best thing I found was our local LGBTQ Chamber of Commerce, which
Yes.
had a listing of a lot of people from outside of the area, but nothing indicated if they're
Mm-hmm.
trans or not. They were just at least allies as part of the
Yeah.
community.
So your directory listing, is it national-wide or
Yeah,
worldwide?
it is national and global.
Okay.
Currently, I'm not sure there's anyone international. I'm talking to people internationally. I think we
Okay.
have one member right now that is international. So Transzone is an online business directory at
Mm-hmm.
transzone.co,
Mm-hmm.
and that is an access to any trans-owned or non-binary owned business that can get into the catalog. And so there will be one place that we can see all of our businesses, or at least most of our
So
businesses.
if I want to join, how can I just go
Yes,
to that website?
yes, transzone.co,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a tab called Join,
Okay.
very appropriately.
Yes.
And there's free memberships all the way to featured member, and you get different bells and whistles
Mm-hmm.
as a
Mm-hmm.
member. Um, as I was building this out, I knew I wanted to be something more than just a directory. And
Yes.
that's when the entrepreneur training I had done in the past kind of
Mm-hmm.
came in. And so what we're doing is we're creating an adjacent online community. So all the paid members of the um, directory will be part of this community, and there'll be
Mm-hmm.
courses, workshops, different events, maybe like business insurance expert, real
Mm-hmm.
estate expert,
Yes. Thank you.
talking to all of our business owners and make it
Mm-hmm.
available to help them grow in their understanding in their business. And so there'll be primarily business, but also personal development growth
Mm-hmm.
in this community. And the goal is for learning, but of
Yes.
also inspiration and collaboration, that we can work together and maybe
Mm-hmm.
have some businesses do things together, but also just develop this kind of a codependence or an interdependence with each other,
Yeah.
kind of an ecosystem of positivity and support
Yeah,
and
like
connection.
for example, if I'm in, let's say right now I'm in real estate business, and I might need a website, for
Right.
example, or I
Exactly.
need to do a podcast show. I need
Totally.
somebody,
Exactly. Yes.
cross path their business
Totally.
services,
Totally.
and yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a very great idea. Also, I want to ask you, because I'm kind of similar like you. Like I said, we were talking about it.
Hmm.
We kind of hit it off.
Hmm.
Do you see anything that's in common, or some sort of trait between entrepreneurship and trans people?
Yes, I do, as a matter of fact. I just was writing about this the other day,
Uh-huh.
that the average, the average national average of people that are entrepreneurial in the population nationally
Yes.
is 7%.
Mm.
In the trans community, it's 18%. Now, there's a lot of variables for that. A lot of times
Yes.
because we have to,
Right.
maybe there's issues of hiring, and
Correct.
certainly we know the stories of hostile work environments and not
Mm-hmm.
acceptance, and even being fired for being trans, and like we talked about with some of that legislation.
Yes.
Um, but there is more entrepreneur nature,
Mm-hmm.
and I think trans people make the best entrepreneurs for a couple of reasons. One is that we know what it feels like to not have support. And a lot
Correct.
of us.
Feel
And
alone.
so exactly,
Yes.
feeling alone out there doing the thing, being self-motivated, we
Mm-hmm.
know that. We're aware of those feelings. Also, we know what it takes to make something from nothing and or kind
Yes.
of just reinvent and or
Right.
pivot your business. That's something we've done quite a bit in the past. And there's strength in our community. There's strength
Mm-hmm.
in communities across the world, but our community is unique in the sense that we share a very difficult, if not traumatic,
Mm-hmm.
experience that really uniquely links us together. And that's something that can really be used as motivation and expertise in starting a business.
Yeah. So do you think people who wants to start to do their own business or become their own boss, do you have any tips or
Hmm.
hacks?
Yeah.
Yeah, in general, like
Right.
do you need to prepare yourself emotionally or you need to have some sort
Mhm.
of maybe some sort of saving first or
Sure.
some sort
Sure.
of
That would
that?
be nice. I think a lot of our businesses are bootstrapped, but
Yes.
that's where we start anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think the toughest thing is simply getting started.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would encourage someone if they have an idea, there's different ways of validating that idea, and there's different kind of processes to go through to systematize your business. But I think the
Mm-hmm.
most important thing is simply getting started. Do something. Go talk to someone. Begin to ask questions of what population may use the product or service that you have, and just talk to people and get the ball rolling. You don't have to have the best website. You don't have to
Yes.
have the best product in the
Y-
final
Yes.
phase. That's all perfect.
Right,
There's
right, right.
MVP, a minimal
Yeah, just
viable
like I'm
product.
doing this podcast show.
Exactly.
We're
That's how we live our
sucks at
lives.
first, right? So, yeah, I understand. Yeah, and then plus, I also want to add is there's a lot of YouTube videos or
Yes.
other podcasts that you
Right.
can learn from. That's where I started actually
Totally.
during COVID, and then I started reading a lot of books
Yeah.
and stuff. So it really helps. And yeah, so what other goals you have coming up for your business?
Right.
I
Yeah.
heard you're gonna start some other side business,
Yeah.
like the map that you were
Yeah.
creating. Can you share
Yeah.
that with us too,
Yeah. I have
please?
a few other little projects on the side. Transzone is kind of the main focus. Um, Although it's probably not a full-time job. I mean, it will be in the future, but not at this point. But what will and hopefully help in the future to pay my bills is I've started a branding agency and social media management, and so
Mm-hmm.
it's called flourishsocial.co.
.com.
And
Okay.
that's something where I can just interact with business owners that help them everywhere from trying to figure out who they are as a business with their unique
Mm-hmm.
identity,
Right,
what is unique about them
branding.
compared to
Yes.
competitors,
Mm-hmm.
getting that graphically represented on paper, but also in messaging and positioning where they need to be in the market.
Mm-hmm.
And then we can kind of take the burden off them for their
Right,
social media. And personally, I know how difficult it is just with our own accounts. It
right.
gets monotonous and there's a million other things to do. And sometimes social media
It
can
can get burned
take,
out
yeah,
too. So
exactly.
yeah.
Absolutely. And so that's something that we can take the burden off business owners. I
Mm-hmm.
know business owners do some things really good, but they don't do everything really good.
Yeah,
And that's something we
it's
can
a
help.
team
Right.
sports to
Exactly.
me. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes.
And then I have a little e-commerce website called mycitymaps.co. For some
Okay.
reason, I like the .co extension.
Yes.
Um, but it's just a little place where you can go and customize your own map of your city or your
Mm-hmm.
wedding space,
Mm-hmm.
engagement, your favorite date, a bucket list item. You can make a customized wall map
Mm-hmm.
for it, and so with different designs. So it's kind of I bought that and established that on my own domain there.
Yeah, so we're gonna have all the links in the show note that she mentioned are
Okay,
related to her business.
great, thank you.
So now we are closing up. I'm gonna invite Michelle back to do some like as a guest host with me. So
Yeah.
you want to tell like the audience like what kind of topic that we
Yeah,
might do it together,
sure.
in the future?
Yeah. Um, I think my passion is community building, but then also um, helping empower this entrepreneur spirit.
Yes.
I would love to see women across the board, queer women and trans
Nice.
women, of course,
Right.
um, understanding their giftings and what they can bring to the table, and then how to monetize that, how to make that a business, a sustainable business for them to have a sense of self-empowerment, the self-decision making where you're in
Mm-hmm.
charge of things.
Yes.
It's not hard. This is the easiest time in history. I mean, let me rephrase it. It is very hard, but this is the easiest time in history to
Yes.
start with what we have with
For
different
resource.
platforms and
Yes.
internet available.
Yes.
So I am really committed to helping our community establish businesses,
Mm-hmm.
grow together and grow. And I think um, there's a lot of areas we're strong in community, but if we
Yes.
can come together linked as businesses
Right.
and as a business commit to building into our community, I mean, we'll be
Mm-hmm.
unstoppable. It'll be
Yes.
very, very exciting and powerful time.
Awesome. Awesome. So we're looking forward to hosting a show with Michelle.
Thank
Okay.
you so
Thank you
much.
so
Thank
much
you.
today.
It's a great time.
Yeah. Well, that's our first show. Stay tuned for the next one.